Welcome to this edition of Along the Forest Apps Road. Hi, I'm Tim Ard, your host for this edition. We'll be discussing a version of a notch that most folks don't think about, the slide notch. A tree is down and now the real work begins. We have to cut it into manageable pieces to be able to either move it, chip it, burn it, or sell it. In this process is a magnitude of issues that can affect our safety and profitability. Where to cut is formed by our need to move the cut piece of wood, planning a required length for either hand movement, fireplace, or machine. Sometimes our decision is dictated by market or work area requirements. Firewood length, chip length, or environmental concern lengths are all necessary size requirements. Whatever the size needed at the point you make the cut, a plan must be developed. A decision has to be made asking yourself these questions. When I make this cut and sever this piece of wood, will it move? Will it move side to side, up or down, or back to forward? We must anticipate movement to decide how to control it. We decide where to cut and will it move. Then next is what technique to use to produce the piece. Sometimes just a straight cut to sever the piece will work great. Sometimes a notch and hinge to slow down reactions or movements and pinch pressures. Offset cuts can also reduce twist movement and eliminate pinch and bind. Two very useful techniques are a simple kerf and/or a slide notch. The kerf is the term used to describe a cut made into a log or limb. Making a cut with a saw into the log or limb produces a kerf. The kerf is normally 3/8 inch wide. The depth of the kerf is regulated by our saw's depth of cut. There are really only two types of kerfs used when working with a saw: a straight kerf and a combination of kerfs we call a notch and back cut. A straight kerf will close quickly under pressure and force fibers to bind your saw bar and chain on the compression side of a log or limb. On the tension side of the log or limb, a straight kerf will work fine to reduce bind as long as a kerf or notch and hinge on the compression side allows movement without it closing or experiencing fiber splitting. The slide notch is produced by simply turning the bar and chain parallel to the limb or trunk on the compression side. Now slide the bar up or down the surface, making an opening through the bark and into the fiber. This shallow slide into the fiber will work as a notch opening, the same as deep notch of about 90 degrees. Then as a kerf cut is made from the opposite tension side, the fiber is allowed to work as a hinge. The notch and hinge can even be made towards the side of the piece to direct the limb or trunk in a more sideways direction. In either position, the slide notch works much better than a simple kerf cut. A slide notch can be made just as quickly, if not faster, and eliminates the chances of compression, side twist, and bind. The notch is used in our work to allow the wood fiber to bend, relieving pressure as the wood piece is severed. Because tree trunks and limbs grow in circles, adding growth rings annually for strength while maintaining flexibility, a notch is necessary to keep the pressures from splitting the fibers as they move into a desired direction, into the face notch. You can illustrate this by just simply making a kerf into a limb piece and then applying pressure to the limb. The fiber will split off instead of bending in the desired direction. If you make just a small slide notch on the limb on the opposite side from your kerf, when pressure is applied, the fiber will work as a hinge into that notch opening. This relief notch is reducing the fiber separation and the splitting that occurred in the previous. Operators sometimes use notches to try to prevent binding in a limb or log. The notch opening is placed deep into the piece with thoughts to reduce binding on the compression side, the side closing on your saw bar. It's not the notch, however, that reduces the pinch. It's the hinge wood just behind the notch that eliminates the pinch. A deeper notch simply moves the pinch point, not the pinch. The depth of the notch really only moves the compressing pinch point closer to the middle of the limb or log's diameter. This will actually pinch your guide bar with more pressure than a shallow notch. Several kerfs will do a better job than a single one to reduce the pinch possibilities in pressure situations, but it takes much more time. The best, however, is a hinge or holding fiber to keep your guide bar and chain from becoming stuck. It can definitely, for sure, help the operator read the anticipated movement with less bind potential. So next time you plan to clear a storm situation, cutting a tree trunk or a limb, try out a slide notch instead of just a straight kerf cut if your plan highlights or anticipates there could be binds. Remember, when using a chainsaw, an important part of your plan is to read and fully understand the manufacturer's operation manual, and to always wear proper personal protective equipment when using a chainsaw. I hope you heard something that may stimulate some new thoughts when working with your chainsaw. If so, press the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. We hope to see you along the Forest Apps Road in the near future. Thanks for traveling with us on this trip. And so until then, I'm Tim Ard, wishing you good sawing.